Good day and welcome to the Orangeburg Area Free Public Library. Today I'm going to read the story The Relatives Came by Cynthia Ryland, and the pictures were done by Stephen Kamel. This is a Caldecott Honor book and it's pretty funny. The Relatives Came. For Agnes Little and her brood, and Dick Johnson and his Jerry and ours. It was in the summer of the year when the relatives came. They came up from Virginia. They left when their grapes were nearly purple enough to pick, but not quite. They had an old station wagon that smelled like a real car, and in it they put an ice chest full of soda pop and some boxes of crackers and some bologna sandwiches. And they came from Virginia. They left at 4 in the morning when it was still dark, before even the birds were awake. There they are in their car. They drove all day and into the night, and while they traveled, they looked at the strange houses in different mountains, and they thought about their almost purple grapes back home, and they thought about Virginia, but they thought about us too, waiting for them. And so they drank up all their soda pop and ate up all their crackers and traveled up on those miles until finally they pulled into our yard. Then it was hugging time. Talk about hugging. Those relatives just passed us around their car, pulling us against their wrinkled Virginia clothes, crying sometimes. They hugged us for hours. Then it was into the house, and so much laughing and shining faces and hugging on the doorsteps. You have to go through at least 4 different hugs to get from the kitchen to the front room. Those relatives. And finally, after a big supper 2 or 3 times around until we all got a turn at the table, there was quiet talk, and there were 2s and 3s enough through the house. The relatives weren't particular about beds, which was good since there weren't any extras. So a few squeezed in with us and the rest slept on the floor, some with their arms thrown over the closest person, or some with an arm across one person and a leg across another. It was different going to sleep with all that new breathing in the house. The relatives stayed for weeks and weeks. They helped us tend the garden, and they fixed any broken things they could find. They ate up all our strawberries and all our melons, then promised we could eat up their grapes and peaches when we came to Virginia. But none of us thought about Virginia much. We were so busy hugging and eating and breathing together. Finally, after a long time, the relatives loaded up their ice chests and headed back to Virginia at 4 in the morning. We stood there in our pajamas and waved to them in the dark. We watched the relatives disappear down the road. Then we crawled back into our beds and felt too big and too quiet, but we then fell asleep. And the relatives drove on all day long and into the night. And when they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses in the different mountains. And they thought about their dark purple grapes waiting for them home in Virginia. But they thought about us too, missing them, and they missed us. And when they were finally home in Virginia, they crawled into their silent, soft beds and dreamed about next summer. And there are their grapes. Thank you for joining us here, and I hope you enjoyed the story, and thank you for inviting us into your homes.